Story. You think the story's bad now? It gets worse. We get over that little hump, right? I move in with Mr. Lamborghini in Baton Rouge. I have no one. I'm very isolated. I'm entirely dependent on this new relationship, on someone that I barely know. But God is good, and He took care of me. So what ended up happening after that was, I basically threw away my future when I left, because I just graduated from Loyola with an international business degree. My entire future was in the hands of my parents and their jewelry stores. My dreams of taking over and making it better and doing all of these things were gone. And here I am living with someone that I barely know and I felt like I had no future. And that made my sense of security even worse, because I'm like, well, what if he liked me because of all of this stuff that I brought with me? Like, she's an entrepreneur, she's going to be a business owner, she's like business savvy, and so was he. I thought that without having my family's business behind me, that he wouldn't be attracted to me anymore, and that I lost basically my flair. But looking back, he was actually quite gracious. He said, don't worry, don't stress, I'll take care of you. But to a woman who's very independent, who's always needed to be independent and take care of herself, that's not easy to do. And remember, I was a very arrogant 23-year-old, so don't tell me what to do. That was my attitude, and I just couldn't sit still. So I went out and applied for jobs. I got hired. I hated the job. I probably lasted one day and I quit in Baton Rouge. It was awful. These stupid marketing agencies were awful, awful, awful to work with. And Mr. Lamborghini looks at me one day because he sees that I'm depressed. I'm going through a lot. Again, very new relationship. And he's like, why don't you start your own jewelry business? And I look at him and I'm like, me? And he goes, yeah, why not? Don't you know how to run your family's business? Like, if your parents left, or they would have left for months, would you have been able to run it by yourself? And I was like, yeah. And he says, just start your own business. Start your own brand. It doesn't have to look just like theirs. You can do everything online. You don't need a store. You were already doing so many sales online. And actually, that's something that I forgot to mention earlier, was that I had started my family's online store on Shopify back in 2008. So I knew Shopify very well. Anyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But Shopify is basically the largest e-commerce platform in the world right now. And I knew how to operate it from the early stages of development. So I looked at Mr. Lamborghini and I was like, I think you're crazy for thinking that I can do this, but I'm going to give it a shot. And he's the one that drafted my articles of corporation, who drove me to the, I don't know where it was. We went to some kind of courthouse in Baton Rouge, and I filed my articles of corporation, and Cristy's Collection was born because I wasn't married yet. So the business started as Cristy's Collection, and it started because I didn't have a choice. I didn't feel like I had a choice. But it's also because someone else believed in me. Sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes you need someone else to believe in you more than you believe in yourself. That is the power of support and encouragement and motivation. You don't realize the difference that you can make in someone else's life by believing in them. And I think that's where the disconnect between me and my mom came, because here was a man that, for whatever reason, fell in love with me, who believed in me more than I believed in myself. And I felt like I couldn't get that same level of belief from my mom. It was very, very disheartening. And so my goal was, when I first started the jewelry business, was I know how to solve the family dynamic issue. I have the perfect solution. I'm going to design and develop my own jewelry brand. I'm going to wholesale it to my parents so that they can represent my line and make money with it. And I'm going to just do my own thing. That way we can completely separate business and family. I thought that was the perfect, brilliant solution. No, that is not what happened. For a couple of months after I started the jewelry brand, which by the way, Mr. Lamborghini loaned me $10,000 for me to invest in my first batch of jewelry. And I was able to pay him back after that first Christmas. I founded the brand in October, first week of October 2012. We had the holiday season shortly after that. By January, I was able to pay him back. And that felt really, really goddamn good. That took me from this level of confidence to here. Being able to pay Mr. Lamborghini back in full and be able to reinvest the profits into more, into more, into more. So I started wholesaling my jewelry to different jewelry stores, my parents included. And you guys will not believe what happened next. I go into their store to go sell them some jewelry, and my mom and dad had knocked off some of my new jewelry designs. Not identical, but just enough that you can confuse the two. That was like a stab to my heart, because here I am. I just graduated from college. I'm so much in debt from school. A school that you wanted me to go to because you wanted to pursue the American dream, because you wanted me to have a better life. And I wanted to do all of these things for you. Didn't believe in me. So, okay, I'm going to go do my own thing so that we can separate family and business. I do something. I sacrifice my future of taking over the business because I want to prioritize family. I'm putting family first. Okay, so I'm starting this whole other thing so that we can separate family and business. I'm doing the things so that we can create win-win scenarios. I'm designing jewelry that makes me happy. I'm wholesaling it to you so that you can mark it up and then you can make money and everybody's happy. And then you're going to go knock off your daughter's jewelry designs? Again, don't make my mom the villain, right? But she very much played the role of villain in my story for a long time. And that's hard to share. I don't know if I've ever shared that publicly, but yeah, my mom and dad knocked off my jewelry designs when I first started. And it created confusion because there weren't that many people that knew, or I should say, the people that knew about Sterling Sylvia knew about me. They saw that I went somewhere else. And here I am trying to launch and create a name for myself. And then my parents they're buying my things, but then they're making things that are directly competing with mine. It's like they did the Amazon Jeff Bezos thing. That was so, so hurtful. And eventually I hired a lawyer and I took them to a legal mediation. We decided court was too expensive. But y'all, I went through an entire legal mediation over this shit with my parents. And I had no one to talk to about it. I couldn't talk publicly about it. I wasn't going to put the laundry on the street. I wasn't going to share things on Facebook and say terrible things about my parents. I wasn't going to tear them down. I wanted to handle this matter privately. So I guess long story short, y'all, Mr. Lamborghini proposes to me in the middle of this falling out with my family. And while I'm falling in love and about to start a marriage, I don't even know if my parents are going to make it to my wedding. And I remember I had to shop for my wedding dress without my mom because of this terrible falling out that we had. And that's not something that I wish on anyone. What upsets me the most about this whole story is that why did business have to get in the way of family? I never understood that. And I think that's why, as a founder, as the most important thing to me in leading my team is making them feel like co-creators, or at least giving them the opportunity to be co-creators and allowing everyone to contribute their sense of purpose in creating and developing and building something beautiful. And for whatever reason, as brilliant as my parents are, as intelligent, creative, motivating as they are, I feel like they kind of failed me in that respect. But that failure is part of my story, and it's part of what made Cristy Cali Jewelry what it is. And in case you haven't connected the dots yet, Mr. Lamborghini's last name is Cali. So when I got married, I changed the name of the business from Cristy's Collection to Cristy Cali. Thankfully, I had chosen Cristy's Collections, which started with the letter C, so Cristy Cali was able to integrate very seamlessly into the branding and the logo and all of that. Yeah, that's what happened. Okay, so told you about the legal mediation, got married, blah, 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 blah. After the wedding, I thought things were going well because I had invited my parents to the wedding. It was a very strange feeling in the air. I don't think my dad was very happy about it. But after the wedding, I remember that I was dropping my dog off at their house for asking them to take care of him for a little while, my golden retriever. Again, y'all, we had already gone through all of this mediation. We went through the wedding. They almost didn't come. My mom opens the door after all of this, and I see her wearing a necklace that looks exactly like a necklace that I had just designed recently after the mediation with a very small change. And my heart sank into my stomach, and it felt like someone stabbed me in the stomach with my heart in it. Again? You copied my jewelry again? That was the final straw. This was like a year after the wedding, maybe. I think it was 2014. And that's when I said, I just can't trust her anymore. I'm still designing and developing jewelry designs that she wants to copy and sell in her store and not buy from me and not support her own daughter. It was one of the biggest stabs in the back that I'd ever experienced. And after that day, I stopped talking to her, and I didn't talk to her for 5 years. It wasn't until 2018 that I reconnected. It wasn't until 2018 that I reconnected with my family. And I feel really bad for my dad for having been caught in the middle. And, there's a lot of things that I probably missed in telling the story, some other details that could have been relevant, that could have been important. But y'all, I didn't rehearse this. I just have talking points about things that I wanted to share so that you can really understand what I went through for a sense of relatability, for a greater sense of empathy, compassion, and for you to know what you're wearing, for you to feel good about the resilience, the determination, but most importantly, the forgiveness that plays into my story, and that ultimately that energy comes out into everything that I've created. After so many years passed, I really started missing my dad. And to be brutally truthful, I didn't miss my mom. What was there to miss? My mom and I did not get along for most of my life. It really felt like my mom was against me. Like she didn't want me to succeed. She made me feel very uncomfortable, and she made me feel like I couldn't be close to my dad. It was not good, you guys. It was not good. But because I missed my dad so much, I reached out to him at some point in 2018 and I said, hey, do you want to go out for lunch? And that first little olive branch started something really magical. And in the years to come, after a lot of therapy, some family therapy, some very uncomfortable conversations, but truthful ones, we were able to come together as a family. And for the first time in my life, I started developing the most beautiful, meaningful, substantial, rewarding, fulfilling relationship with my mom. And there's so much more to the story. In another episode, I'd like to share with you what happened to my mom. My mom has a very tragic, sad story of her childhood and what happened to her mom. And while these are not excuses, they shape us. We don't know how or why they shape us the way they do, but my mom is not an evil person. And sometimes people do really shitty things, but they are not evil people. They just don't know better. And they're not doing it to hurt you. I feel like somebody out there may be going through something with someone who hurt them. And I have another story about Mr. Lamborghini, who hurt me too. I don't think he's an evil person. I don't want to make him out to be the villain in my story either. But there are things that he did that were just totally unacceptable. And I forgave him too. And that's one of the reasons why it was so challenging for me to walk away from that marriage, is because he was the person that believed in me to start the business. He believed in me before I believed in myself. And I don't have a problem with leaving the jewelry named as Cristy Cali. And I have no problem being Cristy Cali, because I am who I am greatly because of him, for better. So how do I wrap this up? Yeah, so my founder story, I felt a lot of shame around my founder story for a very long time, because I didn't know how to share the truth. I watered it down because I didn't want to make other people villains in my story. And it was also a very challenging time in my life. But my founder story is rooted in resiliency, in forgiveness, in compassion. And my hope, my greatest hope, is that people will hear the story and relate it back to the jewelry in a much more meaningful way, so that the jewelry can remind you of what is possible through forgiveness. Mr. Lamborghini and I divorced in 2022. There was an incident that happened in October of 2021 that broke us up. And then I want to say that the divorce was finalized in May of 2022. And that's where I started rebuilding my life with a new chapter. And that's something else. That's another story for another episode that I would like to share with you. The majority of you are here because of my jewelry brand. And so I'm going to go back to that. Who were you before the jewelry brand? And to be completely honest with you, I have no fucking clue. I don't know who I am without the jewelry brand, because I have identified with it so much to a point where it probably isn't healthy for founders and business owners to be that self-identifying with their business. It can be very toxic because you associate your value with your revenue numbers or your profitability, and that's not healthy either. But over the years, I've learned so much about how to separate myself and the jewelry. And I'd like to think that this podcast project is a way for me to start separating my voice from the jewelry. I don't know what it's like to be a traditional jewelry consumer, because I've never been one. I've had a very rare, unique relationship with jewelry because I grew up in the industry. I grew up wearing jewelry that my mom sold, that was sourced by her, that came from her, or it was my own jewelry that I designed. I have this very strange, I don't really understand what other women or other people's relationship is to jewelry. So that is an entire area to be understood in my mind. But I can imagine that if you are someone who is very intentional about what you wear, you have a very distinct style, that you care about the energy behind what you're wearing, behind the labels, behind the brands, behind the designers. And this podcast is to help create a sense of connection and relatability, to bring the human soul of Cristy Cali beyond just the jewelry designs, and for you to hear it from my own voice. And I hope it lands well. I hope that I hope you love my jewelry more because of my story, and that it serves you in a way that empowers you throughout the day and gives you an interesting story to talk about with your friends and family. So perhaps in the next episode, I'll dive a little bit deeper into my love story with Mr. Lamborghini, what I learned from that marriage, what I learned from that relationship, what I learned about relationships in general. This is where it does get very vulnerable. I have some interesting stories and experiences about open relationships and friends with benefits, that what I don't want to regret sharing. And so I know that I'm not the only one that's gone through these things. Sharing my story, I know, will be very helpful to someone out there who is confused and doesn't know how to navigate these dynamics, or isn't sure about what you want for yourself, what's right, what does culture ask of us, what is true to you, right? One of the things that I've come to realize about being someone who really lacked a sense of self is that when you lack a sense of self, you try to put other people's beliefs on, like you try them on to see how they work for you. You're like, oh, that person knows what they're doing, or that person has a life that I aspire to. Let me try on their beliefs. And while that can be true to some extent, for someone who hasn't had their own sense of self for such a long time, figuring it out can be very challenging. And that's the journey that I've been on since the divorce, and also since I left working for my family, because for many years, for most of my life until I was 22 years old, I wore my family's belief systems. I was indoctrinated with their belief systems from the fear of Guatemala too. I had to unlearn that Guatemala is not a terrible place. The world has terrible people that may inhabit the same area, but Guatemala has recently become even more near and dear to my heart. I have fallen back in love with my own home country, with my own people, with my own roots, and embracing that. Oh my gosh, for embracing, I don't even have the words to describe how, as an immigrant, having grown up in the United States away from my roots, how reconnecting with my roots has like reignited my sense of self, my identity, and helped me come home back to myself. And that is such a great feeling of being like, yes, I am Guatemalan. I am from this country. Look at our ancestors, what we've done, what we've accomplished, what we're known for, the energy that we radiate, the culture that speaks volumes about our love and what we can create together as a community. Look at the crops that we grow, the cities, Guatemalans are incredibly magical beings. And for someone who got bullied for that as a little girl, it took a lot of rewiring, a lot of neuroplasticity to come back home to myself. So I hope that my story really helps you however it can, whether it's reconnecting with yourself, coming home to yourself, resiliency, forgiveness, believing in yourself. There are so many different themes here. I couldn't encapsulate it all into one. So that's why it's called the Cristy Cali podcast and not Grace and Grit, kind of like what I thought it was going to be at one point. So anyway, I'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much for your time, for watching. I appreciate you. If you are a beloved jewelry collector of mine or a fellow Cali crew member, part of my membership program, I hope my story helps you realize how much that means to me and how far I've had to come in order to get to this point. There's so many more great things to come from the podcast and the jewelry designs that I have in development right now. I'll just say this. If you are a lover of gemstone jewelry, just wait and see. I have some really great gemstone jewelry coming out this spring and summer. Also, if you like to read, I do have a Substack. I love to write, and I've been writing for a very long time, probably because I've been avoiding talking, because you can't edit talking. You can edit the shit out of an article, but you cannot edit this that much. So please check out my Substack. And I would love to connect with you on social media. Please find me on Instagram and on TikTok. And if you have any feedback or guidance on the podcast, or if you just would like to connect with me, that's what this is all about. Please don't be shy. Reach out to me. Let's connect. And I would love to get to know you better. Also, I'm going to do this one last shameless plug because I know that all the other podcasters do this, and I'm, as a baby new podcaster, I need to start getting in the habit of doing this, which is if you are following on YouTube, please subscribe. Is that how you do it? If you're following on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're listening to this on Spotify, please follow and write us a review. Your words really can make a difference. Thank you again. I appreciate you all so much, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace, guys. Bye.